Okay, in this demonstration, I want to continue this idea of blending, ideas of creating skin color, and also, of course, working with this idea of drawing a portrait. As far as like the students that are being coming to class, of course, I can, steer them in the right direction, give them a little bit more demonstration. But this is a very, very easy concept. But again, a lot of people get very, very overwhelmed because, again, it is a portrait and it seems to be very, very difficult. And again, it's all about observation. Everything that we do, of course, in this class is all about depending first upon your eyes, if they're able to distinguish instructions for the hands to do. As far as the instructions would be, of course, what makes that eye different than all the others, as far as like everyone within the world. Everyone has, of course, distinct shapes. As far as the top eyelids, they're all very, very different. Like the eyelid maybe open up a little bit higher, maybe it's a little bit more so in the beginning, a little bit more so towards the back, or just somewhat rounded, or a combination of both. As far as the lower eyelid, usually doesn't have as much expression as the upper eyelid. As far as the noses, most important thing about the nose is it is round. It is a round ball at the tip of your nose. You want to make sure you cradle the shading around it according to where the highlight is coming from or the light itself. And of course, just blend, transition until you actually have that nice roundness. As far as nostrils, of course, depending on the perspective and the height of the nose, sometimes the nostrils are very, very subtle. Sometimes they're more, easier to see. But again, it just changes. As far as the nose itself, a lot of people, of course, like to draw the symbolic nose with these two hard contours. Remember, these contours do not exist. You see the contours mostly when the person is looking away from you, at 3/4 or a little bit less or a little bit more. You'll see one edge of the nose moving out. But when a person is looking directly at you, you cannot draw these. You have to trickle the shading upwards, slowly, slowly, slowly. So again, this is something we did during class. We talked a little bit about the blending and the layering and things like that to get a little bit more variety, get more feel for the use of the colored pencil. This is done very, very quickly, but again, it's done effectively because, again, it's about building up the layers. Now, one of the things I try to teach you guys is, again, do not think of the Prismacolors anything different than, of course, working with graphite. I do not want you to forget about your transitioning. I want you to think about, I do not want you to forget about your lights, your shadows, your midtones, all those kinds of things. And also, of course, the smooth blending. A lot of people, as soon as they get the color, they just want to fill. And that's about as far as it goes, and then, of course, the color itself, it's much better than, of course, graphite because, again, it's more stimulating to the eye. As far as the graphite, you really, really have to work for everything that you get. As far as color, it does do a lot for you without any kind of work for you at all. So as far as, again, working with this idea of the color, of course, we want to think about the highlights. But again, we want to give it a sense of everything has its place. Everything has, a sense of direction. So this is a sample that I worked in class first, and then I turned it over. Wendy, one of my students, was generous enough to volunteer herself. So I started doing this entire portrait while they were working on theirs. And again, I use the sienna. This is one of my favorite ones to actually use as a base. As far as the base is layering, drawing the contours, doing 2, 3, 4 layers of values. Some areas a little bit darker, some areas a little bit lighter. And again, really not using, the whole idea of the vocabulary we're supposed to be using. But again, we are working mostly with neutrals. As far as when you do look at this side, I'm being a little bit more playful with the use of color. Here, I'm going to go a little bit more warm. Here on this side over here, I'll go a little bit more cool, with a little bit more of the yellow greens and the greens. But again, I'm being more playful with the use of color. But again, this is the way I would begin. As far as getting this idea of hair, the most important thing about hair is rhythm. If you don't have rhythm, you're going to mess it up and you're going to hate it. So as far as the idea of rhythm, again, when you look at the form of the head, of course, the head goes this way, the head goes this way, usually long hair, even wavy hair. Of course, it's going to wrap around the form, which is your head itself. So again, you need to make sure that you're able to rotate your hand in the direction. And again, this is some of the first examples we did in class. about using the wrist and turning. And of course, you say, well, it doesn't turn well, but turn the paper. So again, you turn the paper, and sometimes I'll push into it a little bit more and I'll release. So I release in areas where it's supposed to be a little bit lighter, like up here. Over here on this side, I left it a little bit lighter, according to what the picture was telling me. But again, every 3 seconds, every 2 seconds, I'm looking back at the photograph. So again, normally this assignment would be done face to face with another student, and the objective would be look at that person, treat that person as a study, and from there you kind of work your way through it. Try to get as close as we possibly can so you can see all the nice information. From a photograph, it's okay, but I mean, we do have, of course, a possibility to enlarge a photograph. We can zoom into it, and that's the nice thing about using technology. But again, we really want to emphasize this idea of observation as much as possible. As far as within this drawing here, I'm going away from black. I really don't like students to use black very, very much because black is very, very muddy. It is very, very strong. So I usually prefer the students to use, the darkest would be blue indigo. But again, you can use black when you actually know how to use black well. Because some people will see, oh, black eyes, black brows, black. But again, you'll never bring out the sense of color. So again, usually I'll start off with the lightest color first. Then I'll go to a cream color, then I'll go back to a brown color, then eventually a dark brown color. And once I start going with a white and start, blending everything, creating a really nice foundation where, again, you can feel the texture, you can see the texture of the color, then I'll start trickling in a little bit of color. So my favorite combination, like the brown paper bag, was using mostly a light green and an orange. That combination of complementary colors really created a really nice, almost like a tang. A tang would be like a nice sense of vibrance. If it was too strong with the green, that's great. If it's too strong with the orange, I'm still good with that. So, but again, we wanted to think, of course, of our complementary colors. So I taught you guys how to draw a color wheel. I said, I don't remember how to draw one, but I'm looking at one on my phone. So again, if you're using blues, oranges. Oranges, of course, side by side will look really nice. But again, if you do combine them, they will neutralize. So again, anything from the one side of the color wheel to the other side of the color wheel, again, that's the choice. That is the best thing you can possibly do, again, to neutralize your colors and to be an effective person using colors. So again, as far as all this drawing here was done, again, with one color, and again, I treated it a lot like my graphite pencil. Now, as far as when I am working, I never go away from the photograph. I'm always studying it. Now, I could do one, again, just for my imagination, but again, the objective is right here. So again, the idea is to scroll it open, look at it, study it, and do the best job you possibly can. So again, as you can see here, I press more and I press less. And somebody say, why do you press more? Well, because I want a deeper shade. So when I come back with another color on top, this color is going to hold its ground because there's a lot more of the opacity of the color here. Over here, there's a lot less. So whatever I introduce here, more likely this will change. This will change very little. Here it will change very, very little. Here it will change a lot. Here it will definitely change a lot because there's hardly any of that sienna here. So again, just like a graphite pencil, I push and I soften and I blend, I transition. That's what you really, really want. So again, if you're very, very sloppy, just know that the finished product will also look very sloppy. So again, this is very, very easy to do. Some of you guys are, the ones that kind of kill me is the people that still want to put their thumb on top of their finger. If you put your thumb on top of your finger, you have a tendency to do little hatching marks like this. Because again, this is what's happening is that you're pushing in your index and your middle finger, and this is what you normally do. For this, you need to blend the colors together. So again, holding in more with your fingertips, we'll roll the color. Again, pull color in, pull color out, pull color in, pull color out. So it will be much, much softer. And again, you go this way, you go this way, you go in all different directions depending on what's going on. So here, on this side here, I definitely have my highlights. I have highlights. One of my favorite colors to use is a lot of lavender. Here's a little bit of reds. Definitely can see some little bit of the yellow greens kind of flashing through, and of course a little bit more of the sienna here and there. I can see a little bit of the orange. So again, those are the things that, again, those are exaggerations to the color. As far as the brow, is a lot of brown, a little bit of the dark brown, and then the dark indigo blue. The indigo blue, it looks a lot like a black when you just kind of look at it. Like most of the time, it'll confuse you. But again, definitely you can sense, there's a sense of the blue in it. But when you are using colors, again, you have an entire spectrum of colors. It's like, what would you use? Well, I like to use some fleshy colors, again, like the peaches. I like some of the ideas of the pink. I like the ideas of a soft one, again, has a little bit more white. But all these colors, again, you can see what's inside, again, just by looking at it. This is definitely a lot of yellow with a lot of white. As far as this one here, this one has a little bit more, again, a little bit of nice balance. It has a little bit of the redness, a little bit of the yellowness. So, but it is definitely more of a neutral, kind of a soft pink, but a lot of white in it. Anytime you have a lot of white into any kind of a color, it's going to be called a tint. Anytime you have a black within a color, which I'm not using anyways, it's more considered a shade. But again, you can see all the different colors that I have. But again, within these colors, within these neutrals, you know, you do have, of course, a sense of color with all of these. So even though it's kind of like grayish, you say, well, it's kind of bluish. Isn't it kind of like a bluish gray? So yeah, it does definitely has a sense of blue. But again, those are all neutrals. And this is like a small little pack that I would use to actually handle something like this. Now, if I wanted to, again, pull something else out from the bag, well, definitely I'll go there and search for something else that I'm not having here. But again, all these colors, when I'm blending, I'm going to create new colors. So not just because I have just this, you know, I can create a whole world with just a little nice little handful, because again, I'm layering, I'm stacking, I'm blending, I'm pressing, I'm softening. So again, you're going to create more and more colors, and that's why these colors are a little bit more pricey, is because again, they have little wax. They really don't have as much wax like most color pencils do. And again, it'll allow you to actually do more coloring. So they have a tremendous amount of pigment, less wax, and a little bit more oil. That oil allows it to kind of float and kind of blend and soften a little bit more. So anytime you get, again, something, again, like a Crayola, anything like that, those are loaded with wax, and you can only do maybe 1-2 layers at the most, depending on how hard you push, and your texture will become completely saturated. It looks very, very shiny, and then you go here and try to add more, so it won't take anymore. Well, it's because, again, you have a very, very low inferior grade of pencil, and it's mostly wax, and there's very, very little color. Well, anyways, let's get back to this. As far as when I do start here, again, I'm going to say I already hit it really hard with a sienna. Now the next part is to choose one of my cream colors. So for me, I like these two creams. This one here definitely has a little bit more of the red in it, but this one's very, very safe to use. Safe in the sense that it's going to change it very, very minimal. And what I'm really looking for, I'm looking for an opportunity to start to layer and create a deeper, thicker color. So I just want to make sure that my reference is open. That way, if I do have any questions, I go back and look. But again, every 3 seconds, that's what you want to do. Every 3 seconds, you're looking back, you're looking back, you're looking back. And again, you're looking for more. Again, a lot of people say, well, what am I looking for? Well, you're looking for improvement. You're looking for not to get lost. So again, just by doing this, you can start seeing that some of that brown, that sienna is starting to soften up a little bit. Now here, I'm going to stay away from that area because I really would like to push a little bit of white first before I actually do the cream. But once you, of course, get it a little bit, once you start layering, you know, you can't really go back to white. You know, that's why I want you to stage it very, very slowly and push your way towards a darker. It's very, very easy to make it dark. Don't worry about making it dark. That is extraordinarily easy. The harder part is, of course, you know, keeping it light, keeping it soft. But again, everywhere that I looked, there was an opportunity for me to add a little bit more. Now, some areas here, I said, well, maybe could you add a little bit of light there? So sure. So again, these pencils will erase a little bit. It's not like they'll completely go away. But again, you just want to remove a little bit of that color that's there. That way when you come back and you layer a little bit more, it'll be fine. Now some people will be like, why are you putting the cream inside the white of the eye? I really don't want any white within the eye. The only part that I want white is the highlight area. That way the highlight looks nice and shiny and bright. As far as this will be toned down to something. So again, I'm right now just doing my first layers. Well, this is my second layer. This is my second shot at it. But again, it doesn't take that long. But again, I am going to have a lot of people that want to do the portraits a lot like cartoons, where they just want to fill in, and they're forgetting everything that they learned about the class, which again was observation, staying as objective as possible, and of course utilizing good skill. So again, the most important thing from this class is confidence, that I learned something new, and whatever I did do well, I improved it. So again, as far as within the world that we're going to be working with, especially those of you who want to continue something within art, is we want to be extraordinary. We want to work in that direction. And everyone has a potential. Everyone has the ability. It's just a matter of how hard are you willing to work for it. Some people, they want immediate reward, and it just doesn't happen. Now the reward is the reward will come when you guys will be more dedicated to your subject, and also of course work on your technique a little bit more, work on your blending, and again be more dedicated. Enjoy what you do, and not let other things kind of get in your way. So again, as far as if you, of course, pursuing a career within the arts, within anything that you want it to be, it's all there for you. But again, as far as within the arts, it's going to be so much more difficult than any other thing, just because of the amount of dedication that one would have to do. So again, if you want to become, of course, anything else, of course, it's very, very clear. It's very, very black and white as to what do you need to do. Like if you're going to be a lawyer, so I need to learn and memorize everything within these few books. And then the test, it's very, very objective. I really know, there really isn't a sense of grayness. I just have to, of course, know as much as possible. And the same thing for most medical classes. It's all about, of course, knowing everything that's within those textbooks or within the research. But as far as doing something within art, whether it be painting, drawing, dance, any kind of a performance, music, it's up to the individual. And as far as the instructors, some instructors will give you a lot, some will give you a little bit, because again, it depends on the instructor's lives, and if they're really into this whole idea of, let the students, do more of the work. But of course, and so again, if a student's willing, they're going to show up, of course, eventually they'll kind of course, manifest within the class a little bit more so, and make themselves more noted that they want to do more. And sometimes the instructor will, of course, obligate themselves to help them out a little bit more. So as far as here, again, that was the second layer, and it did take a little bit longer. Again, I was studying the picture, but the next part here is to work those little highlight areas that I saw, and I'm going to push back into the mediums and into the darks. And you can see that now I have a really, really nice base. I really have a nice foundation coming back in here. And I'll usually press on the white quite a bit, just because it doesn't really have much of an impact as far as as far as changing the color. But again, I like to use the example of a can of paint. When you put say like you have yellow, and then you put, I want to make it into a green, so I put a few drops of blue. Well, the blue drops of paint, they just kind of sit on the surface. They don't mix by themselves. So you put a little paint stick in it and you start mixing it. Once you start stirring it with a paint stick, it starts, of course, to change to whatever it's going to become, according to the proportion of the color that you put in there. This is a lot like the white. The white is that painting stick. So again, I spin it, I turn it, I go up and down the sides, but definitely you can see how it's already changed it. It's already softened it up a lot. If you're going to a very area where you want it very, very pristine, you want to make sure that you clean the tip, because sometimes you'll be dragging color along with it. As far as the eye itself is going to be a brown, but again, I like to think of the brown as being color. So usually when I think about, if you ever look at your eyes, even though they are very, very dark, or they could be dark, you have the eye, the light kind of flash in there a little bit, from the sun or whatnot. And you'll see that the brownness actually looks a lot more like a honey color. So I usually have that intent. I wanted to make it look a little bit, and again, that's with any kind of a color, is I always want to start off with a little bit more brightness. And then from there, I can always make it a little bit darker as I go on. But let's take a look at the photo. Let's see if the photo has anything. So as far as the photo, again, we have two little highlights here. And as far as the color of the eye, it looks like a bluish gray. And again, right even here underneath the eyelid, there's a little bit of soft color. I don't have much room for that, but I'll try to sneak it in there. But again, definitely looks very, very deep in color. So my next part would be to go again with the brown. But so that brown's not going to do a whole lot to it. Let me go ahead and use, again, the Tuscan red. Do I have a dark brown? I don't. Probably gonna have to run to go get one. But anyways, we'll use the Tuscan red. Now, if you are using the Tuscan red, so what is the complement of red? Well, it's the dark green or a green. So I'll have to go run and get that back. Unfortunately, I don't have a dark green here. I have a regular green, more of a yellow green. But I'm gonna work with what I got. So the next one I'm going to add is the indigo blue and see what this does. So this is what I'm looking for right now, is that contrast. I was waiting to get that contrast going. But definitely underneath the eyelid, that's where you want to put a little bit more effort. And then you kind of roll forward. Again, the people in the, yeah, I'm going to have to get the dark brown. Let me get it real quick. So you guys observe. I don't want to pause the video because I don't really want to know how to connect them. So I'll just go like that. All right, well, I'm back here. Let me just look at these pencils. So the one I'm looking for is more of a burnt umber. There you go. So this is a burnt umber here, and I'm gonna definitely this would do the job much better than me trying to mix a bunch of colors. So right now I'm working around the highlights, and I'm pushing my way down, trying to create a little bit more form to the eye, a little bit more of the depth of the eye. And that's the beauty of the eye itself, is that nice sense of depth. As far as the brown itself, I'm going to also work it along the edges, especially on the top. Kind of work my way inwards. Again, you want to make sure that you're always looking at your reference as much as possible. I have left enough here as far as some of the blending to have an idea as to what I want to do with it. As far as the blue indigo, I'll use that like a black. I'm going to put a little bit more like a little bit of the blue. This blue is very mellow. but that worked really, really well. It did a really good job of blending the colors, the layers it had on the bottom. Really nice. This is a very nice color. What is this one called? Can't tell. It's definitely like a sand. Now, as far as the color of the skin, it looks very, very drab. You know, again, it doesn't have a sense of color. So again, definitely I can use, again, when I look at the photograph, it's what's the potential for the color of the skin? Well, definitely there's a sense of, again, that lavender color, maybe even some more of the reds. So again, just like the paper bag assignment, there was a potential for adding a lot of color. So here, definitely I can see the sense of redness here. Again, you want to brighten the lightness on the picture as much as you can. You can see the nice little highlights here. But again, this is the part where it'll become more fun. Now, when I do apply the color, I apply just a very, very little. I don't really try to put a lot. Again, these Prisma colors are very, very soft. Some of the colors are actually even softer than others. But again, you just want to just gently just roll the color on top. And just, you want to see it as a subtle thing. And just by putting a little bit of this, now it looks a lot better. It looks a little bit more rich. But again, it's still a very, very single note. I want to add a little bit more variety. And again, it's up to you how you want to start. You can do a little bit at a time. You can sprinkle a little here. You can sprinkle a little bit there. Or if you go a little bit too bold with the color, of course, you want to neutralize it. So again, as far as that orangey color, I can definitely balance it out with something that's kind of greenish. That'll help to kind of balance it out a little bit too. So again, you really, really want to be, again, look for it, but again, in a very, very subtle way. A lot of people want to expect to see the color, but again, if you press on it very hard, of course, the color will scream at you. But again, you really don't want to see the colors very, very bright. You want to see them very, very soft. But again, you want to be looking at the picture and see what you can possibly get away with. So again, just like the paper bag, there are some opportunities where you can go, of course, a little bit deeper, some other areas a little bit darker, but depending on the area. So like here, you say, well, this is a very, very dark area. Could you get away with doing something like this? This is a very, very, it's a violet. So, well, I mean, you can, but just be aware that, of course, it may seem very dark or a little bit too bold of a color. But again, you do have all those nice layers on the bottom already. So more than likely, it's not going to stand out unless you really, really, again, push on it. You really don't want to push on the colors. Unless, of course, it's a very, very light color. Then you're using it just to blend the colors together. And, of course, you can press on it just a little bit more so. So what I'm looking for is a transformation of the color. I'm really not looking for it to, be incredibly different. But again, I really want to have a sense of color, more sense of color. Now, as far as, again, artwork in general, a lot of people, again, when I do, a lot of students that turn in stuff online, they're doing the class online. It's just night and day because, again, the expectation is not really there as to what should it possibly look like. A lot of students at home, they want to do it and they just want to be finished with it. You can tell by the quality of the work. The blending is not very good. You can tell that they chose something for themselves that seems easy because, again, it seems very, very minimal. So it does bother me because, again, they want, of course, pursue this career in art and to be a lie that they're going to do well just because they're not pushing themselves. And it's very, very difficult to push yourself, in the sense, okay, this is good enough. So again, the idea is not to choose something that is good enough. Choose something that is too difficult to push you to become a better person, to become better at your craft. So always choose something that seems to be like a mountain. Because after you climb that mountain, you'll be so much stronger. And that's the problem I have with students doing it online, is that they choose something that is very, very minimal, and you're not going to grow anything from that. You know, it's just you again. The problem is, again, people treat it like a level one. But the thing is, the hope is that you eventually become independent upon yourself, as far as you, of course, being able to do things, and you aspire to do things. So again, you really want to give yourself the most difficult of assignments. So again, very, very subtly, this is coming along very, very well. So again, I took a chance by using that nice violet, that red violet. But again, I toned it down a little bit. I came back now with, again, the sienna and starting to soften up the color. I do have my highlights. I really like the form of the eye. I like that it came a little bit darker here in the middle. As far as one of the things I didn't get to put in there, it was that inner edge of the eye. So I'm going to see if I can use this little cream color and trick it in there. Now they can be again, I'm kind of approaching this very, very soft. I can definitely really, really clean it up, make it really, really clean. But again, I kind of like the looseness. As far as my blending, it's very, very good. As far as, again, being soft, the color is very, very uniform. The transitions are very, very good. My contours are a little shaky. They're not as clean as they normally would. But again, I'm kind of letting the play come into. I really want to play with it a little bit more so than be too meticulous. So I went in there with the darkest brown that I have. And again, as far as the eyebrows, again, they go this way, they kind of turn this way, they turn back this way. And again, that's as dark as it's going to get with color. As far as my indigo blue, this is where I'm going to work. But again, mostly on the bottom. I'm going to work my way upwards. And over here, again, they're very, very strong brow. And again, I'm pushing. I fatten it up, and then I pull. I really want to make it look more like hair, instead of just filling it in as if it's a space and I just fill it in. So I need to look back at our picture, just make sure I get it more or less right. So again, I want to make it look a little bit more natural, especially on the bottom. So again, if you're deciding that this is the career for you, again, you really want to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself as much as possible. And again, you'll be all the better for it. And again, who cares about time restraints? Who cares about any of those kinds of things? And that's one of the things that most students want. They always want to know how long. It's just like in your English class. It's like you're going to write a research paper. The first question was, how many pages does it have to be? The idea is, who cares? As long as it comes out, the quality of the work has to be there. Who cares how long it takes to actually do the work? So again, if it takes all night, it takes all night. If I need to start early, you better start early. So again, you really want to stress this idea of quality. Right here, just going to darken a little bit more these inner folds. So again, every 3 seconds. So again, when I'm seeing you guys draw within the classroom, it bothers me that you're spending too much time looking at your paper and hardly any time at all looking at your reference or whatever